Ever wish you could just disappear?
Yeah.
I mean, who hasn't, right? Today we're diving deep into the world of invisibility, a concept that has fascinated us for centuries, from like ancient myths
Oh, yeah.
to modern science fiction. And what's really exciting is we're not just talking
Fantasy anymore.
Not anymore. It's getting real.
Yeah. So, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, invisibility, once purely the realm
Of imagination. Is now a field of serious scientific exploration. We're going to look at how invisibility is portrayed in fiction.
Right.
But more importantly, the incredible strides science is making towards turning this age-old dream into a reality.
So cool.
We'll be using insights from sources like Wikipedia's entry on invisibility and some intriguing research compiled in a document simply titled
Invisibility.pdf.
Invisibility.pdf. That's it.
Straight to the point.
Straight to the point. I like it. So let's start with the basics.
Okay.
When we talk about invisibility, what exactly
are we talking about?
Well,
in the simplest terms, invisibility is the inability to be seen.
Okay.
Scientifically speaking, we see an object when light bounces off of it and reaches our eyes.
Right.
So for something to be truly invisible, it would have to neither reflect nor absorb light, allowing light to pass through it unimpeded.
Okay.
Think of it like perfect transparency.
Okay.
But even better.
Like a perfectly clear window.
Exactly.
You can see right through it, but there's still something there.
Exactly. And here's the thing.
Oh.
No naturally occurring material is 100% transparent.
Right.
There's always some degree of interaction with light, whether it's reflection or absorption.
So true invisibility in nature is a no-go.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's where the science fiction part comes in, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've all seen those movies with cloaking devices and invisible people.
You're on the right track. Science is stepping up to the challenge. Okay. And the key to unlocking invisibility might lie in something called metamaterials.
Metamaterials. That sounds like something straight out of a superhero comic.
It might sound futuristic, but these are very real materials engineered with a specific structure at the microscopic level.
Wow.
What's fascinating about them is their ability to manipulate light in ways that natural materials simply can't.
So how do they work? Do they somehow make light disappear?
Not exactly disappear, but more like redirect it.
Okay.
Think of it like building a detour around a town. Metamaterials can be designed to bend light around an object.
Okay.
So instead of hitting the object and reflecting back to your eye, the light bypasses it completely.
Oh.
It's like the object isn't even there.
That's amazing.
It is pretty amazing.
So you're telling me that scientists are actually bending light? Are we talking about full-blown invisibility cloaks like something out of Harry Potter?
We're not quite at the Harry Potter level just yet, but we're getting closer. Researchers at institutions like Duke University and UC Berkeley have been making some groundbreaking advances using metamaterials.
Wow.
They've successfully cloaked small objects from microwaves, and even more recently, from visible light.
From visible light.
It's a huge step towards larger scale invisibility.
Wow, that's incredible.
It is.
But I have to ask, are we talking about a future where we could have, say, invisible cars or even people?
It's not impossible.
Really?
And it's interesting to think about how fictional portrayals of invisibility, like in comic books, have actually sparked some of the real-world research happening today.
Yeah.
For example, the Invisibility.pdf document mentions characters like the Invisible Woman from Fantastic Four, who uses her powers for stealth and protection, or Shadowcat from X-Men, who can phase through solid objects.
Right.
These fantastical abilities have, in a way, set the bar for what scientists are striving to achieve.
It's fascinating how imagination can inspire real-world innovation.
Absolutely.
But before we get too carried away with futuristic scenarios,
Yeah.
let's bring it back down to Earth.
Okay.
What are some of the biggest challenges researchers face in achieving true invisibility?
One major hurdle is scaling up the technology.
Okay.
Cloaking a tiny object is one thing,
Right.
but making something large, like a car or a person invisible, is exponentially more complex.
I imagine.
It requires incredibly precise control over light at a much larger scale.
And it's not just about visible light.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to be invisible to radar, that's a whole other ball game.
You're absolutely right. Achieving true invisibility means being undetectable across the entire electromagnetic spectrum, not just the portion we see with our eyes.
So we're talking about invisibility to Everything from radio waves to infrared radiation, the whole shebang.
Exactly. We need to develop what are called multispectral cloaks.
Okay.
Which can manipulate different types of electromagnetic waves simultaneously.
Okay, multispectral cloaks.
Multispectral cloaks.
I'm adding that to my mental lexicon of cool sci-fi terms that are becoming science fact. But before we go any further down this path of what's possible, I think it's worth taking a detour into the world of myths and legends surrounding invisibility.
I agree. There's a lot we can learn from exploring the historical fascination with invisibility.
Yeah.
And perhaps one of the most famous, albeit controversial stories,
Oh, here we go.
is that of the Philadelphia experiment.
Ah, yes. The tale of the USS Eldridge, a Navy destroyer that supposedly vanished into thin air back in the 1940s.
Back in the 40s?
Intriguing, but was it real?
Well, the story goes that the Navy was experimenting with electromagnetic fields, aiming to make the ship invisible to radar.
Right.
But some accounts take it a step further, claiming the Eldridge completely disappeared, teleporting to another location and then reappearing.
Right, and there are all sorts of rumors tying the experiment to Albert Einstein and his unified field theory.
Oh, yeah.
But the Navy has consistently denied any involvement in such an experiment.
That's correct. And let's be honest.
Yeah.
From a scientific perspective, the idea of making an entire ship disappear using technology from the 1940s is highly unlikely.
I guess even with the allure of invisibility, sometimes the truth is more mundane.
Sometimes.
But I think it's fascinating how these myths and legends, like the Philadelphia experiment, capture our imaginations and fuel our curiosity about the unknown.
Absolutely. And while that particular story might be rooted more in fantasy than fact, it highlights the enduring human fascination with invisibility and the desire to manipulate the world around us in seemingly impossible ways.
So even though the Philadelphia experiment might be a myth, it, in a way, paved the way for real scientific exploration into invisibility.
In a way, yes. It's a reminder that even the most fantastical ideas can sometimes spark real-world innovation.
So putting aside the myths and legends, what are the real prospects for achieving true invisibility? Is it really something we could see in our lifetime?
The advancements we've seen in recent years, particularly with metamaterials, are incredibly promising. We're moving beyond the realm of science fiction and into the realm of scientific possibility.
So cool.
And who knows, maybe someday we'll have those invisibility cloaks we've always dreamed of.
That's a tantalizing thought.
It is.
But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's take a closer look at the specific types of invisibility being explored, from cloaking against radar to manipulating sound and even heat.
Yeah.
Stay tuned because we're just getting started.
We're just getting started. Welcome back to our exploration of invisibility.
We're back.
Before we ventured into the world of myths and legends, we were talking about the need for multispectral cloaks.
Right. The holy grail of true invisibility.
That's it.
The idea that to be truly invisible, you can't just disappear from sight. You need to be undetectable across the entire electromagnetic spectrum, from radio waves to infrared.
And everything in between.
And everything in between.
Precisely. And while that might seem like a daunting challenge, there are some really exciting advancements happening in different areas of invisibility research that are targeting specific parts of that spectrum.
Okay, so let's break it down. Where are we seeing the most progress?
One area where invisibility technology is already being applied is in radar cloaking, which, as you might guess, focuses on making objects invisible to radar detection.
Ah, so this is where we get into stealth technology, like those radar-evading aircraft, right?
Think of the iconic B-2 Spirit bomber.
I love that plane.
Yeah, its unique shape and special radar-absorbing materials are designed to scatter radar waves, making it much harder to detect.
So it's not true invisibility, but more like blending into the background noise of radar signals.
That's a good way to put it. And while current stealth technology relies on deflecting or absorbing radar waves, research into metamaterials is opening up new possibilities for actually bending radar waves around an object.
Wow.
Making it effectively invisible to radar systems.
So with metamaterials, we could potentially take stealth technology to a whole new level.
Absolutely. And it's not just limited to radar. Another fascinating area of research is thermal invisibility, which focuses on making objects invisible to infrared radiation or heat.
Okay, so we're talking about making things invisible to heat-seeking sensors. That has all sorts of interesting implications, especially in the military.
Definitely, but the applications go far beyond the battlefield. Think about protecting sensitive equipment from overheating or developing new ways to manage heat in buildings and other structures.
Yeah, I could see how that would be incredibly useful.
Yeah.
So how do you go about making something thermally invisible? Do you somehow make it stop emitting heat?
It's not about stopping heat emission entirely, but rather about manipulating how that heat interacts with its surroundings. There are two main approaches, active and passive cloaking.
Okay, let's unpack that. What's the difference between active and passive thermal cloaking?
Active cloaking involves using materials or devices that can dynamically change their temperature to match the surrounding environment. Imagine a chameleon changing its color to blend in with its surroundings.
Right.
It's a similar concept, but with temperature instead of color.
So active cloaking is all about dynamically adapting to the surrounding heat. That's pretty sophisticated. What about passive cloaking?
Passive thermal cloaking uses materials with very low thermal conductivity. These materials act as insulators, preventing heat from flowing through them easily.
So instead of actively blending in, it's more about blocking the heat signature.
Exactly. And just like with radar cloaking, metamaterials are playing a key role in advancing thermal invisibility. Researchers are developing metamaterials that can either redirect or absorb infrared light, effectively masking an object's heat signature.
Wow. It's amazing to think that we can manipulate heat in such precise ways.
It is, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. Another area of cloaking research that's gaining traction is acoustic cloaking, which focuses on making objects invisible to sound.
Invisible to sound, so like a super silencer. That's straight out of a spy movie.
It does sound like something out of a spy film, doesn't it? But just like with light and radar, scientists are developing materials that can manipulate sound waves. These materials can bend sound waves around an object, making it essentially inaudible.
So you could potentially create a room that's completely soundproof or a submarine that's undetectable by sonar.
Those are just a few of the possibilities. Imagine the potential for noise cancellation technology, or even creating quiet zones in urban environments.
It's incredible to think about all the ways invisibility could change our world. But as exciting as these advancements are, I have to wonder, are there any limits to this technology?
Of course there are challenges. One of the biggest hurdles is developing cloaks that work across multiple frequencies. Remember we talked about multispectral cloaks.
Right.
Creating a material that can bend or absorb light, radar, and infrared all at the same time is incredibly complex.
Right, because each type of wave behaves differently. So you'd need a material that's kind of a jack of all trades when it comes to manipulating those waves.
Exactly. And then there's the issue of scale. Cloaking a small object is one thing.
Sure.
But trying to cloak something large and complex like a car or an airplane presents a whole new set of engineering challenges.
So while we're making amazing progress, we're still a ways off from having those full-blown invisibility cloaks we see in movies.
That's true. But the research is moving forward at an incredible pace. What seems impossible today might be commonplace tomorrow, and that's what makes this field so fascinating and full of potential.
It's been mind-blowing to explore the different ways invisibility is being pursued, from manipulating light and radar to bending sound waves and even controlling heat. It really makes you wonder what other seemingly impossible things might become possible in the future as we continue to unlock the secrets of the universe.
It's incredible to think about the possibilities, isn't it? We've gone from the realm of myth and fantasy to the very real science of manipulating light, sound, heat, even radar. What other invisible frontiers might we explore in the future?
Well, one area that's particularly intriguing is the concept of quantum cloaking.
Quantum cloaking.
This isn't about making an object physically disappear, but rather about making the act of communication itself undetectable.
Wait, are we talking about sending messages that are essentially invisible, like some kind of super secret spy communication? That's the idea. Imagine being able to transmit information without leaving any trace. No detectable signal that could be intercepted or eavesdropped on.
That's mind-boggling. It sounds like we're entering a whole new era of stealth and secrecy, not just for physical objects, but for information itself.
It's definitely a game changer, and it raises all sorts of questions about privacy, security, and the potential for misuse.
Right.
But along with those concerns, there are also incredible possibilities for good.
What kind of possibilities?
Think about the medical field.
Okay.
Imagine using cloaking technology to shield healthy tissue during radiation therapy, delivering targeted treatment with incredible precision.
Wow.
Or developing new imaging techniques that can see through obstructions, giving doctors a clearer view inside the human body.
That's amazing. So invisibility could revolutionize not just how we see the world, but also how we heal and understand the human body.
Absolutely. And remember, we're just scratching the surface of what's possible. We've focused primarily on the electromagnetic spectrum, but there are other types of waves that could potentially be manipulated for invisibility. Scientists are even exploring ways to cloak objects from seismic waves.
Seismic waves. You mean the waves generated by earthquakes. Could we make buildings invisible to earthquakes?
It sounds fantastical, but the research is ongoing. The idea is to create materials that can redirect or dampen seismic waves, potentially protecting structures from the devastating effects of earthquakes.
That would be a game changer for areas prone to earthquakes. This whole deep dive into invisibility has been eye-opening, to say the least, from the science of bending light to the potential for manipulating sound heat and even seismic waves. It's clear that what was once considered purely science fiction is becoming increasingly possible.
It's a testament to the power of human curiosity and the relentless pursuit of understanding how the universe works. And who knows, maybe one day those invisibility cloaks we've all seen in movies will become a reality.
It's a fascinating thought, isn't it? The idea that we could manipulate our perception of the world in such profound ways. But for now, I think we've had our fill of invisibility for one day.
Yeah. Indeed, it's a topic that warrants further exploration, and I encourage everyone listening to delve deeper into the fascinating world of invisibility and the groundbreaking research that's pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the invisible world. Remember, what we can see is just a small part of the vast spectrum of possibilities that surround us. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep wondering, because the world is full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered.